I've been noticing how, as humans, we are so obsessed with finding the most complex ways to describe our feelings and our emotions. And we tell everything in this story like manner. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. And we add all these details. We add so much context in our stories to make every story sound so unique. We want the actions, the feelings, the emotions to all be so unique to us. Like that flat tire you probably had is objectively not a unique situation, but in the way that you would tell the story to your friends, you want to make it sound like you. It's natural. You want to make it sound unique. And when it comes to emotions in these stories, as we're talking about them, there are so many variations of words. Like there's so many words for all different kinds of positive emotions and all different kinds of negative emotions and all kinds of neutral emotions and hybrid complex emotions. Like, have you ever heard of an emotional dictionary? It's essentially like this extremely long, organized list of all the vocabulary surrounding emotions. And it's organized on this spectrum from positive to negative. And then there's a secondary axis to describe how deeply you feel that emotion. And there's a unique word for every combination, every coordinate on this graph. We've made describing emotions so complex, so unnecessarily complex. And I know the emotional dictionary is an important concept in therapy and psychology, and a lot of people use it to figure out what they're feeling and then communicate it. But it seems like all the complexity we've thrown into frameworks like this make it nearly impossible for people to relate to each other when we're always trying to feel something so unique, so different, and so complex. So I started thinking about this a lot the other weekend. I was at a safari a few hours north of SF, which was amazing, and the folks there were super knowledgeable. And at some point during the safari, one of the tour guides stopped the entire group and was like, "There's a group of monkeys coming up. Do not make eye contact with the monkeys." They see eye contact, especially at first glance, as a threat, and it can cause aggression as a response in the monkeys. She explained that those specific species of monkeys are naturally very insecure. And so by looking away instead of making eye contact, we can allow them to feel safe in the same space. And so that's what we did. That's what the group did. And, we went along with the safari until we came across another group of monkeys. At which point the tour guide stopped everyone and said, you can make eye contact with these monkeys. In fact, they prefer it. They're very friendly. And for them to feel safe, making eye contact is a sign of submission. But she said, just don't show teeth. If you smile with your teeth or laugh, that could be considered a threat. So don't do that. And it just really got me thinking how, as humans, we've learned how to relate with all these other species. We figure out their tells, their signals in terms of what makes them feel safe or happy or sad or scared. And at the same time, we feel that as humans, we are too complex to understand ourselves. We make all these tiny distinctions in all of our negative emotions and all of our positive emotions. But when it comes to other species, we're so focused on the very simple ones. Happiness, safety, being scared or threatened. We've simplified their emotions just enough to understand them, to be able to relate to them, to be able to empathize with them. So, why do we overcomplicate our own emotions? I have a theory about this. My theory is that we're so desperately trying to feel unique instead of trying to relate to each other, which feels very odd because at the end of the day, when you think of most animal groups, like ourselves, feeling as part of a community is such a biological need. But at this moment right now, to function as a society, especially in a capitalist society, we need to feel individual. I think it's because capitalism is a game where money rules all. Money can buy safety, money can buy health, money can buy longevity, money can buy convenience. And to play the game right, you have to be able to stand out. You need to be a person that can collect more money than other people. And you do that by being a person people give their money to. And so in this game, you spend your entire life building this individual identity. You can't win by being like other people. You have to very explicitly be different. So you stand out through your accomplishments, your wealth, your relationships, what you know and who you know, when you know them. Our society is a network of individuals. And to be an individual, you must stand out in every way possible. And we do this by telling stories. We do this by describing ourselves, our actions, our emotions in the most complex way possible, to be unique, to feel unique, to be memorable. And the consequence of being so obsessed with this individual identity is that it becomes ridiculously hard to actually relate to other people. We spend so much time thinking about how to be different from other people that we forget how similar we truly are. And as I think about this more, I realize that there's very specific situations where we're not trying to be individuals. And we throw away all the complexity in the ways that we describe ourselves and our emotions out the window. And it might happen in other scenarios, but where I've noticed it the most is when it comes to dogs. And I feel like this must be some sort of universal experience with dogs. For example, my sister has been deathly afraid of dogs her entire life. And I remember there were so many incidents where growing up, if we saw a dog while walking down the sidewalk, and if we're down the block on a leash, with people, she would freak out. She would run across a road onto oncoming traffic. She didn't care. She didn't look. She just had to be as far away from the dog as possible. I don't know what started her fear, but it had existed as long as I could remember. And I feel like it just got worse with age. When she was in her first year of college, she was looking for a summer job. I thought it would be really beneficial for her confidence and general soft skills to have a job doing like door-to-door sales. I think it's really tough. You learn a lot. I thought it'd be perfect for her. So I connected her with one of my friends who runs this door-to-door sales agency, and I helped get her a gig. And so she started. It was her first day on the job. She spent the entire day shadowing him. So he would make the pitch, make some sales. She'd be going everywhere with him from house to house, kind of understanding the whole process. And at the end of the day, he gave her the opportunity to lead the last one. He said that he would be right behind her. So they get to the last house and she knocks on the door and an old lady answers the door along with a little dog. And as soon as she sees a dog, she books it. She starts running down the street. And if you have a dog, you already know this. The dog chases her. She's running, the dog's running. And the way my friend described it was you can see her disappear off into the distance and the dog disappear. And then he just laughed about it with the old lady, gave her the pitch, made the sale. And eventually, by the end of the sale, the dog came back, but my sister didn't. And when he did see her eventually later that day, she quit right on the spot. The fear of dogs was really too much for her to continue doing door-to-door sales. But about a year or so after, she had the conviction of getting over this fear. I remember her announcing to the whole family that she was going to adopt a dog. And she knew nothing about dogs. She didn't know anything about dog breeds or breeders or vet processes, shots, all that sort of stuff. But she ends up going online, adopting a dog from northern Canada. I don't even think it was a licensed breeder or anything. It was just someone on a rural farm, like many hours north of Prince George. And when the puppy arrived, she wouldn't even look at it. She was so terrified that she couldn't even be in the living room when the puppy was inside its crate in the house. She was always super on edge. But eventually, with time, she did get over her fear. And she fell absolutely in love with the puppy, which she named Riven, after the League of Legends character. She started to take Riven on walks. She would feed him. She would bathe him, drive him around. She thought of Riven before herself. Her iPhone lock screen, her MacBook wallpaper, it was all photos of Riven. And Riven's birthdays became the most celebrated occasion in the household. And she thought of Riven as the cutest thing on the planet, the most handsome dog, the most well-trained, the smartest, the most well-behaved. And you couldn't disagree with her on anything about Riven. The point is, she got over her fear of dogs, not only with Riven, but with all dogs. She was a new person around them. When she would go take Riven to the dog park, you could catch her playing with all the dogs, petting them, playing fetch. And it was as if all these dogs reminded her of Riven. They had the same mannerisms, the way that they would run, yawn, sneeze. If she saw another dog sneeze, she would be like, "Oh, it's just like Riven." And she adored all the dogs now because they reminded her of him. She saw her dog in all other dogs, the entire species. And that's what I find so interesting. My sister became so connected with Riven that she was able to tell what emotion he was feeling. She could tell when he was scared, when he felt unsafe or safe or happy. And these simple emotions are what made her feel so connected to him. She was able to relate to him. She was able to empathize with him. And as she understood Riven, it felt as if she understood all dogs. She could tell the emotions of all dogs. She became this dog whisperer and acquired this superpower to understand the entire species. Like, isn't that insane? But in reality, all she had to do was simplify these positive and negative emotions to see herself in Riven, to relate herself to Riven, her dog, and eventually relate Riven to other dogs, her dog and other dogs. Now, the idea that we're all not that unique, I think is scary to a lot of people. We talk a lot about self-worth, we talk about our dreams, our ambitions, and all the things that make us us. Like a very common question is, who are you? It's like this question you're supposed to answer where you are unlike anyone else before you, anyone else to come after you, anyone else around you. And we talk so much about what makes us different. And especially if you live in a capitalist society. For example, the whole concept of the American dream relies on you believing that you're different, that you can be in the top 1% if you just give it a shot, if you work hard, or you just think differently. If you figure it out and you're different enough, you could get there. That's the American dream. And I think that's what we all believe. That's motivating. It can be inspiring to a lot of us. So I understand the fear of realizing how similar we actually are. But at the same time, I think all these differences that we're trying so hard to believe, so hard to achieve, make us feel so isolated. I feel like it can be really hard to truly relate to one another, to feel understood, because we're trying so hard to be unique. And in reality, it's us. We cause these issues. We don't have to clutch onto this notion that we can't understand others or others don't understand us. It makes me think how different life would look like if we were to just for a moment not try to be so complex and maybe try to see ourselves in other people the same way we see our dogs in other dogs.